call today's meeting, the Municipal Airport Authority to order. Welcome, Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of May 23rd and the special meeting held June 7th?
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Call the roll.
Mr. Chair, I have a item of discussion.
Okay, to add to the agenda or change the minutes?
No, with respect to the minutes.
Okay. Hold off, we'll call, we'll have discussion about the minutes, yes.
In the special meeting, it was requested and agreed upon that we would go to the city and sit and talk about the use of the 2 mills and request an additional mill. I don't think yesterday we requested the additional mill for 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think we did that as formally, and I think we need to do that.
I guess we can go back and look at the meeting that we talked about all variations.
Well, I think it was this body's intent to talk about the 2 mills that we use for infrastructure and ask for 1 additional mill for 5 years for a parking facility.
So your suggestion is we reconvene the meeting and make that formal request?
Well, I think after this meeting, we formally, in writing to the city, requested. I don't think it was very clear in our meeting yesterday, so. Just my comment.
We were all there. Anybody else have comments?
Yeah, the only thing that I heard was that, and I brought it up, is the mayor said 1 mil for the terminal and 1 mil for the parking ramp, and we can't do it that way. I mean, the mills go to infrastructure, not designated to one particular place.
I felt like just reading the room that it's not even determined. It doesn't seem like a foregone conclusion like in the past that we'll even get the 2 mills.
Well, then we'll
So,
put everything in hold then, because we can't do anything without it.
Mr. Chair, I'm just saying our formal request from this board and that meeting was discuss the current infrastructure and 2 mills used and request the 1 mill.
And the models that we put forth all did that.
We presented models. I don't think we formally requested the additional mill for 5 years.
No, we didn't.
So it's your suggestion, we're not right now talking about the minutes.
Yeah, I know,
So
but it
let's
was,
read the minutes. Sean, could you read the minutes from what Ms. Rankin's?
and it is the very last paragraph. From the special meeting, I apologize.
Yep. After review and discussion of the documents, it was decided the presentation to the commission on June 12 with regard to the annual request for 2 mills would include the 2 documents reviewed today with following footnotes to the estimated sources and use of funds documents. And those notes were that the MAA would continue to have the previously recommended 800 days of cash reserves and clarification that the current mill levy is used for infrastructure, not specifically the terminal apron expansion. Third document to be presented would be the current MAA capital improvement plan.
And on page 3,
Okay, I'm sorry.
no, that's,
So now that, okay. Okay, so this is then discussion with regard to the parking structure. After discussion, there was a consensus that they requested commission would be 1 mil for 5 years for a parking structure.
Hey, Mr. Rankin, I'm gonna rule that, excuse me, a consensus is not a formal motion adopted by this body. We are in compliance with what's in the minutes.
I'm not saying we're out of compliance for the minutes, but I'm just saying that we as a body And I think the expectation was we were going to ask the city.
We deal with motions, when we're dealing with,
That's
body as a whole, not consensus. Minutes here, indicate to me that we did what was requested.
Okay.
Call the roll on the approval of the minutes.
Again,
Aye.
Captain,
Aye.
Ekman,
Aye.
Osgood.
Aye. All right, item number 2, approved airport vouchers, $192,211.63. Motion.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, call the roll.
Again,
Aye.
Captain,
Aye.
Ekman,
Aye.
Osgood.
Aye. Item 3 are the individual vouchers. I was looking for a motion to approve items A through G, and then I through J, leaving item H off.
I just had a question
Sure.
about item H, which was the flash parking for 36,000.
That's the one we're leaving off.
Oh, okay, alright.
We'll discuss.
Motion.
Second,
Second.
call the roll.
Again,
Aye.
Captain,
Aye.
Ekman,
Aye.
Osgood.
Item H, flash parking, the vouchers for $36,933.11. And Darren, if you could put a picture. All right, there's our brand new parking equipment. It's a wonderful
I got it
group
right
of people.
Make sure it was free so everybody can see it.
All right.
Which one is it?
Probably one of my grandkids in there.
How come? That whiteboard. No, that's not it. I don't know which one it is actually.
There it is.
They can't see it though on the Zoom call.
Okay, well, for us here, the brand new equipment, this is the image that we are now portraying to the public when you leave the parking. You see that our card reader is very secure with some high performance duct tape holding it in place. We have just a piece of paper scotch tape down there saying that the intercom doesn't work. If you go a little lower, we'd switch to on the receipt, which is broken off as the receipt comes out. We've been yellow tape. And if you look in the QR reader, you'll see that we do have bugs in there. I think it's a moth. And you know, we're paying thousands and thousands of dollars. I know we have issues with supply chain and everything else, but if you weren't held captive and prisoner, I wouldn't put a credit card into that thing. That's where your card reader is taped in place and you use that type of card reader and then you're scammed at your credit cards. Who's really to blame there? And last Wednesday when I left here, I pulled up to leave in the exit plaza. And I would encourage all of you to use the parking to kind of eat feed the dog your dog food. So pulled up to the outside lane. I wasn't sure because the wayfinding signs are a little confusing as you pull up. Then I had to give the universal signal to the person in back of me to back up. This one isn't working. And we haven't really, gotten that down, but after some waving and hollering, they backed up. I then went to the center lane and did the same thing, backed up, went to the third lane at the exit plaza, knocked on the window, no answer, and thought, gee, I wonder how bad that crossbar will scratch the hood of my car. So this just isn't acceptable, and especially we're introducing to the public a brand new facility, and within just days we have all sorts of things that are telling us what doesn't work. I know it's difficult, but if that were, on the airplane you were getting on, would you get on? I mean, so, I know it's just here, we do have an individual voucher payable to them for $36.09, but do we have any solutions, for this? Again, this morning when I came, on the right-hand side, they under short-term parking, it, said ticket generating, but the arm never went up, the ticket never came out, and I had to do the back up again, but I didn't have to get the signal, nobody was impacted at this point, so I'm just frustrated with it.
We can send that picture to Greg. Greg, you're on board, Pearson?
I am, and I heard pretty much everything the chairman just mentioned. Unfortunately, I can't see the picture, but I would love to take a look at it even after this meeting, if you could share it with me, to kind of give you some recommendations. I can email you directly and let you know as well how we intend to act on that. One of the first things I'll mention is this particular voucher is related to the command intercom installs, which was a part of the original project 2 years ago, and that's when the equipment was put in approximately 2 years ago. So it has been through 2 winters. These intercoms is what this voucher is for, and these intercoms are intended to allow the general public to press the button and communicate first and foremost with our staff, if they're available in the booth, if they're out in the field working or assisting passengers with issues, then it obviously will roll over to our call center in Austin, Texas. And that's that feature that we discussed when I think visited last in March, called RMS.
Yeah, Greg,
So that's what the intent is.
Greg, the one sign says the intercom system doesn't work.
So right, that was, I'm not sure when you took that picture, but we're going live with RMS this week.
This morning when I came in and last Wednesday.
Sure. So again, that was part of the RMS install. The flash came down to actually install the intercom systems, and as part of that install, there is some time and lag between the intercoms not working and working. And so that's kind of what we're experiencing right now. They are able to press the button and call us directly. There probably should be different verbiage on there that speaks to the fact that RMS is not working, but the intercoms are working to talk to our staff directly. But again, like I said, we'll be online this week. I'm happy to let the board know the day that we go online this week. That way all of that will be resolved and behind us. There was some, again, flash came in to put the intercoms in. In most cases, within a day or so, you can go live. There was some missteps with respect to the equipment that was brought in to be installed, but we worked through that, and hence the signage that we wanted to communicate with the passengers as best we could. We do have people rotating and moving throughout the lot to try to make sure that they can see those situations before the person even has to press the intercom button. But obviously we're not 100% on that. But again, the solution is once we have RMS online, we'll have somebody dedicated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week that can answer those calls when they press that button.
Well, Greg and Ben, we'll address this as a regular agenda item. I apologize.
Sure.
I will tell you my own personal experience. I park in the short-term lot when available. It's about 50% that I either have problems getting in or getting out. And maybe it's just my bad luck, but I just, the image that we're portraying to the public, like I said, is really, really poor, and especially with the new exit clouds and things that we're doing. So we're gonna, I hope, go ahead and approve this voucher, but we do need to improve our image greatly.
Are we getting
If I can add one more, I'm sorry.
will there be a whole new unit to like read the cards and scan, and will that whole unit be replaced? Or are you just talking about the intercom?
I was speaking to the intercom and the signage that was placed there with respect to the intercom system and really what the vouchers that are in front of you are related to today. again, we've been communicating with Flash. This is majority sounds like an equipment issue, and we are aware of some of these issues where, like you said, the screen may display something, the gate arm may not open, or those types of situations. Flash has had some challenges, not just in Fargo, but across the board. We've communicated these concerns, first our concerns, and then obviously the airport's concerns at the highest level within Flash. We do the best we can to work alongside our parks partners. But at the same time, we're definitely applying every piece of pressure we can to get these issues resolved. To answer your question, once I get the picture, I will definitely see that specific kiosk and what's going on. I'm pretty certain, just because I was down there in March, all the kiosks did not look
Greg,
the
you
way
should
the
have the
picture
picture.
describes. I'm sorry.
Darren sent you the picture, so you can open it up there.
Okay. But yeah, I think that particular kiosk, one kiosk looking that way is too many. Let me be clear about that. But at the same time, the approach is
The sign and duct tape are on most of them if you check. It's a consistent design feature, high performance duct tape, so.
yeah. So we'll again communicate with Flash and make sure that we can get these issues resolved. And to answer your question, if there's something that's holding it in place that's not intended to hold it in place, like tape or whatever the case may be, we will definitely get those issues permanently resolved and fixed and secured like they should be.
It just seems like there's multiple issues, like there's multiple notes taped on and multiple things broken or not functioning. So
we have
I didn't know what the parks,
Wednesday.
I didn't know what the
Yeah.
PARCS equipment was, so my question was, I was hoping that it was the replacement of the whole unit. But you're saying that the parks is only the
that's not what
intercom?
the vouchers.
Do we have a motion to approve the individual voucher for flash parking for 36,933 left? We have a motion.
Well, for the sake of discussion, I'll move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion at this point?
Mr. Chair, I think you bring up a good point, in the pictures of it don't represent what a new facility should look like, and I would expect putting a time frame on them to get all those issues resolved would be appropriate as well.
Okay. Withholding payments always an attention getter.
Did you receive the picture? Or can you see the picture?
I do. I have it in front of me. Yes.
Flash doesn't put that stuff on there, that's done here locally by the SP Plus group. They provide the unit, and then all the other stuff that you see is done here locally, that's not Flash doing that.
Yeah, we can address any type of signage immediately. Again, we have the weekly meeting with Flash to discuss software related glitches and hardware as well, but primarily it's lately been software and reporting concerns. So again, I will continue to reiterate and give them a deadline as well to address these outstanding issues that we touched on today, along with the other ones that may not have been discussed.
Because Greg, it was at our meeting 2 weeks ago that I showed that, a very similar picture where, so this has been an ongoing concern for us and for our passengers.
Sure. Again, I will get with our manager on site to address the signage. Some of that signage, again, is related to trying to communicate with the passengers upon entry with respect to initially started with reservations. But to your point, we want to make sure we, represent the image that we're intending to represent. So I will get that addressed, I assure you, today from the signage standpoint. And as far as the actual functioning of the equipment, we talk about this on a weekly basis. There has been progress made with this equipment, so it hasn't been stagnant. But at the same time, I will make sure that Flash understands that they need to get this done immediately. And I can also even have them, attend and discuss, this on the board meetings as well, with respect to where they're at on certain outstanding issues. But again, if there's more visible and cosmetic related things, I'll make sure that they get that addressed.
Okay. Since you're on the intercom with us, are we gonna come back and talk to you a little bit later about the parking survey? Is that it?
I believe that is on the agenda, yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right.
I will
Okay.
definitely be talking about that in a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
All right, is there any more discussion? Call the roll.
Aye.
Captain.
Alright,
Heckman.
No.
Osborne.
Aye. All right, item number 4 is financial statements. We're continuing to refine those a little bit. I think everybody, we've had several meetings here. I don't know if there's any comments on that, or Sean, if it was.
That's the dashboard there,
Yep.
so everything else is provided, as some of the members wanna see all the ingredients. Here's the dashboard, is the third page of it, so.
Okay, are there discussions or questions as we try to pull this information down to quick responses?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think if you're online looking at the accounting and you have a question about a line item, if available, clicking into it takes you into detail. So the static nature of this is okay, but to dig deeper in, many times you do have to click in and go deeper, and that's unfortunately not available on a piece of paper.
Did they have the 2021 actual that was all done manually?
Is that
Pretty great taking.
they can't pull that in?
Well, there was an Excel spreadsheet that we're able to pull off of the old city system that they do, but then we've added some accounts and so forth. It's a manual adjustment to do that, so that it.
Alright. Are there any exceptions or anything in the April statements that we should know?
We are,
It seems like we're running a little bit ahead of budget. I don't know if that's timing issues or.
I think it's the timing, of course, parking revenue's been, and car rental revenue has been doing well, better than expected, just because we've had record boardings basically since November. December would have been a record if we had not lost 57 flights, but May was another all-time record, so.
It appears we're around about a half million ahead in sort of our operating income at this point. And what would we, is that mostly parking or the rental cars?
It's parking, the timing that the cash rent for the farmland came in, that's one payment. And April, so that kind of accelerates this time of the year as well, so.
And any expenses that seem to be looming?
Out of the ordinary, of course, there's some winter expenses in here for de-icing materials and so forth, but everything else seems to be in order so far.
And are you beginning to put together next year's budget at this point?
Some, yeah, we've had discussions with Mr. Ledlinger on their plans at the city for cost of living. They're running 1%, 2%, 3% scenarios. Talked about the health insurance, the city has various options for health insurance percentages that the city picks up along with the employee. I'm gonna propose that at a minimum, we keep the employees' payments for the single and the family plan the same that they have been. We freeze that and the airport authority picks up the difference. I'll also propose that the airport authority pick up 100% of the health insurance plan in order to stay competitive with other employers in the area. So that's not out of the ordinary, is to pick up 100% of the insurance.
100% of a single plan or family plan?
Both. But that's your decision tonight, but I would certainly propose it.
Mr. Captain, what's the county considering?
pardon?
Do you know what the county's considering at this point?
I don't know what we're going to do, but what we have in the past is what Sean has stated. I'm speaking just for myself, I'm sure that we'll do it the way that he's proposing it. The way the city has done it, the airport, county. So,
We won't
I
know
could be
health-
wrong, but I don't think
We won't know
so.
Health insurance increase until long after the budget is done, so we'll make some adjustments, but that'll be like August or September before the North Dakota Public Health Insurance Trust gives us. I'm gonna plan on a 10% increase. We did 16% last year, but I hope it's lower.
Commissioner Strand, any idea what the city's contemplating?
My sense is that it's that it's a single plan reimbursement. I don't think we pay for family entirely, but I'm not entirely clear, and I'm pretty sure that's what the school district does too. But that's my sense, is that we cover the single plus dependents, and the family is the person adjuncts it, but I need to confirm that. But I think that's.
Yeah, I think health insurance is going to be a huge employee benefit and retention tool, so I think we have to stay very competitive. I know last year we had difficulty with finding out our rates after the fact that we had no option to change them, and that they were putting us in our own risk pool, so I don't know if that's something our HR contractor could provide, but it might be appropriate to take a look at this point and see what we're doing.
I'll see if Brendan from the Health Insurance Trust can come and address the board at the upcoming meeting.
It was, you know, everything we had was after the fact with no ability to change. I think going forward, we need to, for employee retention, stay right on top of it. So, don't want to miss the airplane on that one.
So I'll build the budget with a 3% cost of living and then adjust from there. Just the timing of when it's all due, just, we can do a lot better budget in September, October than we can in June. There's too many unknowns.
Well, and yeah, we'll see where our budget's leading us to, and the actuals, you know, if we're at a budget and revenue by $500,000, it translates to $2.5 million in additional revenue for the next year budget. So, all right. Motion to receive and file April financials.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and second call. Any discussion?
One comment, many times financial statements don't show the impact of equipment purchases and employee efficiency, and I think we need to keep that in mind, that some of our transactions and purchase of equipment or the SRE building have made the employees more efficient and operate in a safer manner. It never really is called out on a financial statement, but it is important.
Okay. Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Hang on.
Aye.
Got to.
Aye.
Hi,
Osborne.
Aye. Greg, you're back up. Item 5 is the recent passenger survey from SP Plus.
Hand it down on the table if you.
I do. Good morning once again. I can share my screen as well if that's the desire of the board.
Yeah, we do have printouts of your PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I trust you can see my screen as well. So again, we conducted the survey this past month, or this for the summer of 2023, on May the 2nd and May the 3rd. You'll notice that we switched it up a little bit in the sense that we normally follow the days of the week of Wednesday and Thursday, and we decided to go with Tuesday and Wednesday this time, just to see if there was any variation in our findings as it relates to the previous times that we've done it on the Wednesday and Thursday day of the week. And so you'll find on the other pages of the presentation that there was minimal variation between the winter survey and the summer survey, even by switching the days of the week. But what's really rewarding or promising to see is the fact that there was minimal change, which really speaks to the fact that the air travel post-pandemic seems to be somewhat stabilizing. Granted, this is a small sample size. If there's any indication, we're starting to kind of see some things that we can do some better planning off of and predictive analysis, if you will, with respect to the parking operations. So that was really the reason for the change in the day of the week, and also you'll find that summary of these findings really speaks to how things look a whole lot like the winter, which also leans towards the heavy leisure travel that you guys are still seeing out of Fargo. And again, we're defining leisure going forward as business travel that may have a leisure component, just because that business travel is not the typical business travel we've seen pre-pandemic. So again, we asked the same 4 questions from the winter survey, again, to try to compare apples to apples. And that was, how did you arrive to the airport? Where does the passenger live or reside? And we phrased it that way just because a lot of times our passengers, which everybody was receptive, by the way, which is really just speaks to the community in Fargo. A lot of times you ask them where they're from, and they'll tell you, you know, where they grew up and where we really want to know, where do you live right now? And so we changed the way that we phrased it, and we were able to get to the root of the answer, and not also occupy all of their time while they're traveling through the terminal. What is the primary purpose of their trip, business or leisure? And then are the passengers aware about the fact that there's an option to book your parking, pre-book your parking, and reserve your parking online in advance? So that was a carryover question from the winter survey in November of 2022. We once again had a group of 4 of us in total, myself, a person, senior manager from Fort Lauderdale, and also Sioux Falls and then Washington as well on site to try to capture as many responses as we could. There was a small dip in the number of respondents. We had a total of 821 responses, but there also was a small dip by switching the days of the week with respect to the total employments. So it was really commensurate with the number of employments on those 2 days in comparison to the Wednesday and Thursday survey sample set. Looking at this, once again, we were able to collect 37% of the total number of employments, and you can see each of the previous surveys. Again, we were consistent on Wednesday, Thursday, and we'll likely revert back to Wednesday, Thursday moving forward now that we were able to kind of gauge the different days of the week and the fact that there was not a lot of difference with respect to the response, the type of responses. The biggest difference was with respect to the number of passengers we were able to engage with based off the current flight schedules, if you will. So question number 1, you'll see that 39% parked the car with us, 39% were dropped off. If we tried to do this going into it, we wouldn't have been that lucky to have it break out to an equal number. And there's some decimals behind this, so it's not necessarily exactly that amount, but if you based off rounding, we came up with 39 and then 39. The biggest thing to take away from this slide is the fact that there was an increase since the winter survey with respect to the number of people parking with us. So that is very promising. And some of that just speaks to our ability to get out the word about reservations, which you'll see on question 4. And then also just the fact that TNCs, hotel shuttles, car rental return, you'll see it's down significantly, 6% since the most recent survey. So these are all drivers that really bode well for the parking operation from a revenue standpoint. And I just also like to point out that this is obviously after the parking rate increase, which really speaks to the fact that that didn't move the needle from the standpoint of parkers changing their disposition about parking at Fargo or finding another way to get to the airport. So that's rewarding as well. And we see that across all airports that we oversee, all 74 airports, with respect to the fact that, you know, parking rate increases, things of that nature during this time, it's almost expected as opposed to something that really catches passengers off guard and causes them to change their spending habits or buying behaviors or figuring out a way to get to the airport, if you will. So that is really rewarding. It speaks again to the reservation piece, which reservations has continually increased from a revenue standpoint. And so this just gives you guys more resources in that sense. And that's coming directly from the volume and the parking operation. We dug down a little bit on the TNC standpoint. Well, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead a little really quick. So yeah, on the standpoint of if you were local or non-local from the TNCs, we wanted to kind of know who's using the TNCs out of that 5% that you saw in the previous slide. You know, is these local or non-local? And we call them local North Dakota and Minnesota residents. And so you'll see that 37%, that's a 20% decrease of local passengers that were using TNCs since the most recent winter study. And so, again, that's a good sign as well, because you have a lot of local traffic through the Fargo airport. And so that means that they're not using a TNC, they're either going to be dropped off or they're going to be parking with you. And that just speaks to that increase of 4% since the most recent study for individuals that decided to park with us at the airport. So where do you live and reside? This kind of is no surprise. This is probably the most consistent slide or responses that we get, particularly summer over summer, if you will. North Dakota and Minnesota leads the states with respect to where do you reside. We do have representation from Texas, Colorado, Arizona, Florida, and Illinois, and everybody else is thrown into another category because they're less than the 3% or 2% with respect to where you're from. I also like, if you've seen me present these before, just throw a little footnote in that we had one passenger from Louisiana, and it was not me. And so we made the list again, and I think we're 3 in a row, so kudos to Louisiana for that. Moving along, we also have to understand business travel as opposed to leisure travel, which I started this presentation talking about. Business travel remains the same. So I think, again, that's almost a number that's stabilized with respect to the traveling public, leisure travel as well. And again, I think a lot of it is we're trying to figure out in these surveys how to peel this onion back a little further and identify what component of this leisure travel is somewhat business. And the reason I say that is most passengers that we asked this question to, they were kind of torn as to how to answer it. And they would always preface it with, well, a little bit of both, you know, because a lot of times they may have been going to do some sightseeing, but they may have been working, you know, virtually or whatever the case may be. And so I just think it's a new way of business travel today. And we have to kind of tailor our questions to match that as well moving forward, just to really get the true essence of what is business. That way we're not waiting on something that's not going to necessarily return in the traditional manner that we're accustomed to seeing it. So, but again, this is really promising because this seems very sustainable now that we've seen a level of consistency. If you look back to June of 2022, wasn't much deviation, again, 36 and 64%. So there's definitely something that we can kind of plan and predict for with respect to our service offerings. Then last but not least, we also wanted to know again, how are we doing with our exposure about pre-book and reservations on the website? You know, are we getting the word out strong enough? And since the last time we asked this question, which was the first time we asked the question, we have noticed an increase in the number of people that were aware about reservations. We even actually had a few that said, yeah, I made a reservation today and it came into the parking operation. I love to use it. And so that was promising to hear in person. Because again, when you do things right, you're not going to hear about it most times. It's to be expected, and we understand that. So that's also the benefit of getting boots on the ground and having these questions asked in person. You get a little more than what you ask sometimes when you're in person and not just sending out an electronic survey for passengers to answer online. So that's the summary of the presentation. But I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have in regards to this.
Questions?
How many of the people that are parking are using the book ahead? You said 23% are aware of it. How many are using it?
Right, so what I can do is I can, after this call, pull a report that can cross-reference on these particular days the number of passengers that actually used it out of that subset of individuals that parked with us on that day. And that way you can see of the individuals that parked, this is the number that actually used pre-book. But no, that's a great question. And that way you can see the percentage, the pro rata share, if you will, of what made up the pre-bookings for that day, or those 2 days.
Okay. I think we wanna make it as easy, as streamlined as possible for people to park here because it's a good revenue generator for us. And that includes the pre-booking. So I do have a question regarding the $7.50 fine or fee that's charged to people if they make a cancellation. And what the stipulations of that would be, if we could maybe drop the cancellation fee if their flight's canceled. Again,
Right, and
to
most
have
times we do
to have a
that,
good
we don't
experience.
publicize. I'm sorry.
To have a good experience for our passengers that are probably already disappointed about a flight cancellation.
Sure, and I'm just going to cite the most recent time. We definitely made that adjustment, and I'm sure it's happened a few times since then. But around Christmas, we had some cancellations, and we definitely didn't charge or impose any type of cancellation fines or penalties, if you will. So we do have that discretion, and we make sure that we apply that discretion if the situation, presents the case where there's no fault of the passenger. We just have that there primarily to support the cases of a change of heart, if you will, within that time constraint. And so if the consensus or agreement is to keep it there, but obviously apply the discretion for cancellations, then that's exactly what we're doing, and we'll continue to do that. But if you guys would like to move from that and just get rid of it completely, then we can pivot it as well, but just kind of let me know if that's the desire of the board.
Greg, what's the magnitude of that? What are we seeing? 10, 20, 30?
It's not a lot, Mr. Chairman. It's few, far and in between. And again, when they requested it, we don't have any pushback or anything like that, so we don't get any complaints of that nature. We didn't, because they recognize that they see it. It's almost like a flight change or cancellation. And the airlines have been a little more lenient since the pandemic with respect to changing flights. They don't charge a change fee in most cases, at least most of the airlines I travel with. And as long as you follow the constraints of that particular ticket in the airline's case, and in this case within that time window. And then we also offer the option for you to cancel as late as you want, if you will, by buying it's like a dollar insurance, if you will. Again, similar to what you can get when you book a plane ticket as well. But again, if it's a cancellation, a flight cancellation, they had every intention to park with us. They came back to their car 2-3 hours after the fact because they realized they couldn't get out of the airport that particular day. We don't impose any fines or penalties.
And
If they communicate that to us when they say that.
how do you track that? Like, do they put in their flight number when they're booking their parking?
Yeah, well, I mean, we track the flight schedules for one, just in general, because we want to know when the flights are arriving and departing. So we do that from a staffing standpoint. So we can see when the flights are canceled as well. And if we have any confusion or whatever the case may be, we communicate directly with the airport authority.
Okay. $7.50 isn't a lot. I mean, for me personally, I probably wouldn't send an email and say I really want. I mean, I wouldn't take the time to say I want my $7.50 back that you charged me because I followed, because I pre-booked. But I would have a bad taste in my mouth. So, and maybe it would discourage me from pre-booking in the future. So that's my concern.
Now, one thing I will point out with the pre-book, most passengers really resonates with them with the pre-book that keeps them doing it as well is the fact that in most cases, if you do it early enough and you stay long enough, it's a discounted rate. And so sometimes, and this is not always, but sometimes the $750 may be absorbed based off the discounts. So it's still less than what you would have paid had you just pulled up and pulled a ticket, if you will, and that's because of dynamic pricing. So if you book early enough, just like with the airlines again, and stay long enough and park long enough with us, then you might save $20, $30. It just really depends. So that's, I think, part of the reason as well why, to your point, they may say, okay, you know what, I'm spending an additional $750, but I'm still way under what I would have paid had I just pulled up and didn't plan ahead.
Exactly. I just don't want people to have to add insult to injury if their flight's been canceled and their vacation's been impacted, and then they're like, oh great, now I've got a $750 plan too. Like that just seems, you know, bad PR for us.
Understood.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to receive and file the communication from SP Plus?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? Call the roll.
Hingham,
Aye.
Acton,
Aye.
Aye.
Boswell.
Aye. Item number 6 is a request for Roger Tidd to extend his lease in Eastside Terminal.
That's a letter from Roger, 3% escalator. Stacy has the lease ready for signature today.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and second discussion. Call the roll.
Hingham.
Aye.
Captain.
Aye.
Heckman.
Aye.
Boswell.
Aye. Item 7, request from David Stahl on a fuel tank installation.
So this is an update from a previous conversation. And, you've got the map in your packet for the soft fuel tank, so right away.
Yeah, we're, a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, found out it was impossible to get quotes, impossible to get anything. And it's so frustrating, just gonna throw it on the table. And this year, everything just kind of rolling together right now and basically starting from the beginning again. And things are moving forward. And I guess the only changes might be is I think I might have found a deal on a 12,000 gallon tank instead of a 10,000 gallon tank. Jim O'Day was out this last week and measuring, make sure where we put things. Basically, start from the beginning. I gotta see what I have to do again to look at the footprint for the airport lease and go through that and proceed forward, I guess.
So what Dave will need to do, and Dave's installed thousands of tanks around the area, have to prepare a legal description for the ground lease for the tank. You have to create a SPCC plan. I emailed some of that information to you. There's Spill Prevention Control Countermeasure Plan. And then, are you the sole owner of the tank?
Yeah.
So then we'll work with Stacy on getting that ground lease in proper name. And then the 4 cents per gallon fee for OHV, which is subject to change or so I don't know if you have any concerns, it's just an update, so that's where the tank will go.
This is an above ground tank, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So it'll meet all local, state and federal requirements, fire department permits it. I don't know if Darren's there anything else to add, I mean, the FAA would inspect the tank since he's selling to the public. And our fire department obviously helps with those inspections, so lots of hoops to jump through. And you are using the Route 6 pad, if you will. So if you look on the south side of there, there's an area where the semis back up onto this pad. So when they're connected to the tank, in case the hose breaks, there's a spill prevention collection there for the fuel to run off. You have an agreement with Route 6 to continue to use that.
Right, and that's gonna be renewed and gone through again.
Okay, all right. That's all that we have, so if you want a motion to approve his updated plan,
We have a motion to receive and file the updated plan for fuel tank installation.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion second, any discussion? Call the roll.
Hingham.
Aye.
Captain.
Aye.
Aye.
Osby?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Alright, meeting hunt time. And the CMAR.
Okay, Brandon is online. And Manoff has representatives here as well,
Rich is
so.
here, and Mr. Ringen, I believe you served on that committee.
Yes.
So take it away.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Yes, I just wanted to give you just kind of an update on where we're at for the design, and then update you on the construction management contract and our recommendation. So we're wrapping up phase 2, which is design development for the drawing set. Going through the QC process starting at the end of this week. And then we'll have deliverables for design development scheduled for mid-July. This will include renderings, so updated renderings, and then also we'll have a fly-through animation as well to share with the board at that time. And we'll probably present that at the later July board meeting. Then we'll be heading into the construction documents phase, and that goes up through February. So more to come. You'll see a lot more kind of results in July on what we have been doing these past few months. We've had another round with all the user groups, getting their input. We're getting more details and nailing down the floor plans. So it's really coming along well. And all the user groups have been really good to work with. So any questions on that before I move on to the construction manager contract?
No, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So we did bring a construction manager on board. So McGough, TF Powers teamed up. We've been going through the contract in more detail through some minor negotiations. For the most part, it's little pieces of the contract that they just wanted. I think they wanted clarified or more details. It was really good discussion to talk through some of the more sticky subjects, getting out in front of those, so instead of reacting to those if they were to happen down the line. We landed on terms that both parties felt comfortable with, and the contract A133 is in your packet. There's also exhibits and attachments, probably 200 pages of information, but what's important is the foundation, which is the A133, which is still, I think, 33 pages in front of you. But I'm going to highlight just a couple items that I think would be most relevant and probably what you're most interested in. And if you don't mind, I'll share my screen so I can kind of walk through it with you. All right, can you see my screen?
You can increase the font.
You bet, yeah.
Move closer.
So, all right, is that better?
A little more. All right.
Okay. So this might be I think this may be the last page in your packet. This is the cost breakdown that McGough and TF Powers put together as part of their proposal. So I just wanted to just run through this to help you understand how they have broken out. These are the breakout that kind of we had requested this level of breakout as part of the RFP. These are of course estimates professional estimates based on the trends these days and the schematic design documents that they had to review to respond to this RFP. So the bottom line, I think what you want to take away from this is the total construction cost of $82.5 million, which is in line with very close to what we have. A couple things that they do that they could not include in this that we have to hold or that the owner has to hold due to FAA regulations are contingencies. And I'm just noting that the escalation contingency and estimating design and construction contingencies are not part of this. But we do have money set aside for these, and we will work through these as we continue with design and work through targeting this budget with McGuff. The real number that I wanted to talk about regarding this contract right now is pre-construction services. So this A133 is for the GMP, of course, but you have two parts to it. One, the IGMP, which is the initial guaranteed maximum price, which is what you're looking at here. And part of that is the pre-construction services. So that's $311,692. That is McGuff's fee for going through the pre-construction. In other words, the design phase. And then once we get to bidding and we receive the bids, we get an FGMP or a final guaranteed maximum price. So that will be an amendment to this contract saying, yes, we are in agreement that we will build this project for the final guaranteed maximum price of X dollars, and then we would move into construction. So at this point, the contract is allowing them to move forward with this budget and for this fee for pre-construction services. Any questions on the cost here, the breakdown?
Now, this is Rick. I do have a comment. In the initial bidding process, the two final bidders were very close in their numbers, and that lent to a great deal of confidence in their number, the winning number.
Yeah, thanks, Rick, for pointing that out. And in addition to that, the two came in really close, and our independent estimator, Concord, also came in within like 4% of these numbers. So I think all in all, that's I think making everybody feel real comfortable with where we're at and our target.
So Brandon, this is Sean. So unless I missed it, did it include furnitures, fixtures, and equipment? Is that on there?
No.
Okay.
No, that is outside of this contract. They will definitely coordinate it, but we have a budget number set aside. As the board has understood, we have this. It's like $123 million overall for the project. That includes the apron expansion. That includes the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and bridging the gaps between. This is just for the construction costs.
And it doesn't include, as a lot of plans say, by owner. I know that we went through a list of items that will be by owner that aren't part of the project as well.
Correct. We are keeping a separate tally of the list of items, kind of gray areas that Sean and I have gone through, and we're making sure that we'll have those covered as part of the project.
Thank you.
And the overall budget. Yeah. Any other questions on this?
And what would the by owner fixtures be? Like reusing chair seating or?
Moving cables,
Okay,
removing signage or something of that nature, I don't know if there's a whole list of things I think I had sent you, like our FID system, our Flight Information Display System, expansion of that, or if there's something that comes up with a security system or a fire alarm system.
okay,
There's a lot of little surprises that come up and say, well, that's not in our contract, but okay, then it's my own.
okay, thank you.
Right, yes. Yeah, I mean, just as a quick, this is the ongoing list that we're holding on to and making sure that it's covered. Well, I think we'll really be able to get traction on this now that bringing the construction manager on board. It'll be kind of passing the baton off to them and saying, okay, these are the items that we want to make sure are covered in some way, shape, or form. So,
You know, an item like Clear Channel has all of their displays around the area, so is that gonna be part of the contract with them, or is that gonna be on the owner? So it's just, I sent out a whole list of like 30 items of things that we don't want any surprises.
yeah. Yeah, it was really helpful to keep track of this, so.
All right, so the action requested is just to receive and file a communication. Not need to approve anything on that contract.
There was one other thing I wanted to make sure that I covered in this as far as the contract is concerned. So I think it's on page 3. The schedule and the agreement has project starting in March of 2024, which isn't any news. I think that's been our target the whole time. But through the RFP process and through our discussions, both contractors felt it was going to take longer than the December of 2025 to finish both the addition and the renovation. In talking with McGuff and what their projections are, it would be July 15th of 2026 before they would be substantially complete with everything. Now, the reason we have so that is the base of this contract. Right now, we're talking through and trying to find a way to get started this fall, and you may have heard that through just the side discussions, and getting a foundation package out to start this fall. If we can do that, then McGuff is confident that they can hit the December of 2025 target. There are some FAA submissions and funding timeline challenges that we're trying to work through in order to do this, though. So we will keep the board updated on that, but I just wanted to make sure that you were all aware and updated on the timeline that we're trying to work with.
So what document do you want approved today for signature, Brandon?
Thank you. Yeah, so we're recommending approval of signature for this A133 that's in your, for the contract execution for the CMAR. They have, and I'm not sure if your document in your packet has their signature, but they have signed it and is ready for the board's signature. Stacy as well has reviewed this.
Correct.
So that's the 33-page contract that you needed to add a little more details, correct?
Yes, yeah. There's about 200 pages of exhibits to go with this if you want to dive into that. But really, those documents are a standard A201 general conditions, which is given in practically every construction project. And then it's the RFP documents that we had issued and you had looked at before.
Stacy, any concerns from?
This has been a continual review over several weeks, if not months, and so the few concerns we've had, I've voiced those and they've been corrected.
All right, so we would be looking for a motion to receive and file communication and approve the construction management risk.
Mr. Chair, I would move we receive and file the communication and accept the recommendation of the consultant to execute the A133 document.
Second.
Second motion and second, any further discussion? Call the roll.
Hingham,
Aye.
Captain,
Aye.
Heckman,
Aye.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
We're good.
Item 9, hopefully we move along here. Extending the airline leases and operating agreements to 12/31/24. Yes, basically what we do here.
Yeah, so we're going to extend this for another year. We did receive emails on or before June 1st from the carriers that they intend to operate starting on January 1st of 2024. And we have, if you recall, retained John DeCoster to assist us with the formulation of a new lease and operating agreement for the carriers. And hopefully will be effective on January 1st of 2025. The goal would be to try and get a 3-year agreement. We used to be able to get 5, but now since COVID, they're basically annual agreements. Most airports are doing a process whereby the carrier needs to notify them on or before June 1st of each year if they intend to operate January 1st of the following year, which then commits them to some expenses for the entire year if they decide to pull out, service. They say, hey, I'm here in January, they suspend service or pull out of the market in March, they're still obligated just through the end of that particular calendar year. So, but they're all on board to continue no changes.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Motion to approve the airline leases through 12/31/24. Call the roll.
Hingham.
Aye.
Captain.
Aye.
Aye.
Cosgrove.
Aye. Number 10, our favorite subject, back to the parking structure. Okay. We were all at the joint brown bag session with the commission yesterday. And the one item there, and I apologize for this, is that going back to the MOU that was signed between the city and the airport authority, laid out some very specific requirements for the airport authority reporting to the city. And we probably hadn't been in compliance with that. There was confusion as to whether the city was requesting us to do it or not. But going forward, I think from I believe it's a very good governance standpoint that, and we've agreed to do this as part of our operating agreement. So, as a suggestion going forward, I would suggest sometime in March each year when we're getting our audit, that we make it standard practice to invite the city commission to a joint meeting with the airport authority and lay out the things that are required. Specifically, the financial report, which would be the audit, but even more specific is any balances of each fund or account held by the authority, what our capital improvement plans are, I would say, for the year and into the future, an explanation of the authority's need for the amount of local support, and to gamer, I don't think we're gaming state federal funds, but Gardner, I believe, is the correct statement there. Where we're gonna lay out and say this is what we need for state, federal, and other grants. And then an explanation to show how prior years the levy was expended on capital operation and other expenses, and how such expenditures compared to the need presented in the prior year's presentation. So,
We don't.
going forward.
I got it yesterday.
Here.
Huh?
It was from yesterday's meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he never gave me one either.
Oh, okay, that was, but going forward, we have a very specific requirement that we need to meet, so. The meeting yesterday kind of brought some of those items into focus. And, the expectation was to meet, discuss, share information. There was no formal action taken. My summary of the meeting, I'd ask each of you to provide yours, is that they understand our request for the 2 mills, but are looking at a very tough budget year. If we were to make the formal request, as Mr. Reagan suggested, for a 3rd mill, that it probably would not be approved by the commission. And again, these are all discussions and formal actions that until it's actually a formal agenda item in the vote statement, we don't know. My conclusion from that, given the budget situation of the city, is we can come back and we can talk about the 2 mill, possibly. And again, see where that goes. But I think we were discouraged in that meeting to ask for the 3rd mill. So I'd ask Rick if you want to kind of summarize your conclusions.
Well, I'll go back to our prior special meeting, and the consensus was that we were going to ask for it in that meeting and present it. And I think we as a board, if the city wants that parking facility and or the community wants it, we ask for their participation for 5 years in 1 mill, exclusive of the 2 mills already that we're using for infrastructure, and I believe using very efficiently.
Mr. Chair, I also believe that if we get the 2 mills, that'll go for our present and future infrastructure, but the parking ramp is out of the question without that 3rd mill. I mean, that's gotta be put on hold for some future date. I can't see how we can even think about a parking ramp without, without that 3rd mill.
I think that there's other funding options that we need to look at, and that the parking garage should not be off the table because it can be a revenue generator for the airport going forward.
Commissioner Shan, if you would help us.
I think you're all right. Everybody, you know, as I see it, and I'm not a numbers guy, but as I think I'm seeing it, the word folks are using, it's an enterprise. It's a revenue generator. And I don't know that I expected that it could pencil out so well, so quickly, as far as numbers go. You know, I didn't know, but I think that's what it's appearing, that it will be a profit center in theory, which means we have to be prepared for contingencies. But in theory, it's a profit center for the airport, and by partnering, we would generate and create this new enterprise. So that being said, there's no doubt the city would love to see this and would love to partner with you, but the reality too is if it is in fact a generator that's successful, I think it's reasonable to the taxpayer to say we're going to, if this goes as well as it could, to diminish the expectation of burdening the taxpayer in the future for their mill levy support. So this is where the nuance of the details are, you know, I believe we're all right, I really do. But where I'm not good at, and maybe we need, is people to sit down and negotiate those terms specifically. So we see, because we're dancing around it a little bit, you know. There's no doubt the city's budget is an immense challenge. There's no doubt that we are wanting to partner on a ramp. There's no doubt that if it's a generator, that we don't need to, you know, keep. If this creates a cushion for you as a board, I'm not sure you'd want the city's support beyond what your own cash flow shows. But so my suggestion is we get a few people to sit down and really hone in on the agreement potentially that would address these contingencies. And then the question is that 1 mill needed the first year, Or can you live with it the next year? You know, these are little subtle things but our budget's very tight. Folks are envious of your cash balance, but you also have a commitment of expansion that is counting on that. So I'm not sure I'm giving much answer here.
I think you are.
That's, the part of the problem is the airport has never operated without millage since 1969. That's over 50 years. And to even think about in 3 to 5 years that we won't need any mills, I think is way out of bounds. I think the airport is gonna, because once we get the new terminal built and a ramp extension and a parking ramp and whatever else, there's gonna be something else coming up. I mean, they probably need a new overlay on the runway or the taxiway or a new runway, period. So to even think of the fact that we're gonna eliminate the mill levy, I think is way out of bounds.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think the mechanism, we don't talk enough about the mechanism. The mill levy dollars accumulate for projects, and we only have 4 mills that were established by state law.
Yep.
That we're allowed to take, and many times it can't be after the fact. So the mills we're accumulating are to build up a reserve for a project, maybe projects we don't know about. So we don't have to come and ask for 4 mills all at one time, because that is a shock to the system. And those small incremental contributions of capital to infrastructure and or to a bucket for infrastructure are more efficient than waiting and saying, well, we need 1 mill. No, now next year we need 4 mills. That doesn't work, and that's not how most businesses or enterprises would operate either, so.
I would go back to, like I said, the MOU, I was not for negotiating this. We have to remember that we're asked in the MOU, in this agreement, to appear annually and make a request for a mill levy. Just as any other city department would for their funding. They may not ask for specific mill levies, but this is the governance that's been agreed to. A commission, and this is one of the things we have to live with, the commission has the authority to approve a 1-year budget, not a 5-year budget, not a 10-year budget. And under this agreement, we are to come before the city. Now, Mr. Engen, exactly what you're saying, say, this is what we had in property taxes last year. This is what we anticipated their use for. This is how they actually are used. Now, we may want to say we don't designate them, but we are going to have to report to that level of detail. And so the problem I think we've gotten to it is it became too much of just the airport gets 2 mills, the airport gets 2 mills. And we've accumulated a surplus that may well have very good reasoning behind it, but it's just been an automatic. And so I think this is very good governance. We are not elected officials. We are spending taxpayer money and reporting to the commission and saying, here's our request for taxpayer money. Here's how we're going to deploy it. If that includes building up money for future projects, we should have to make the case for that, and we should be ready to be challenged by the fact that, yes, wouldn't it be nice that we anticipate this in 5 years or 10 years, but taxpayer dollars used to build up savings accounts are very, very difficult to manage, and I think we need to be very careful about that. And I would say we've always gotten 2 mills since 1969.
We had 4 mills from 69 to about 1984, 7.
But that's over. And we heard that yesterday, that this commission is saying, come to us with your justification, make your case. We've in the past just received
That's because state law changed. It was automatic until state law changed 6 years ago. It was the airport authority certified a mill levy, and they shall levy it. There was no choice.
Yeah.
The city was at their maximum mills and we were at 0, and
Yeah.
they said we needed 2, they had to give them up.
Yeah.
And that was state law, that changed. The
So-
other part is that we do not accumulate mill levy dollars. Mill levy dollars go into the improvement fund and are spent every year. The accumulation of cash that we have is operational. It's car rental, it's parking lot, it's FBO revenue and stuff, so that's not the cash that we accumulate.
And Sean, this is where we get into splitting hairs. Yeah, the airport operates with cash like any entity.
But it's
if the-
operational cash.
No,
We can have that
now wait.
discussion with the auditor.
I know, and we can split these hairs, but here's the situation.
Here, it's the truth.
This is taxpayer dollars that are coming into the situation.
Correct.
If there were 0 taxpayer dollars, how would we pay for the things that we paid for with the mill levy now? If we're saying we're segregating, then how would we do that? What color dollars?
Have to authorize operational dollars to be put into the improvement fund.
Okay, so in that sense, operational dollars are funded by tax dollars. If they aren't available and that's how you're gonna pay for it, then they're protected. And this is splitting too fine hairs. I think what we have to do at this point is understand our requirement to go forward. That we have to show how we're gonna use the mills. You know, not just, it's all in there. Why do we need it? What's the need? What did we ask for last year? How do we apply it? What are we asking for in the year going forward? And I will disagree with the summary comment that the parking garage can, it's dead in the water.
I'm not
without-
saying it's dead in the water, I'm just saying if without the third mill, it's gonna have to be put on the back burner.
Well, I will challenge you on that. And
Well, I hope you're right, but
no, I'll challenge you on that, and if we look at the cash flow projections for the terminal expansion, we are seeing 3.5 times debt service coverage with the cash balance continuing to build throughout the construction process and the operation of the terminal going forward. So again, we're carrying $47 million in cash, which everybody can say is a huge number, but break it down. How do we need it? Where's it gonna go? I don't think we can sort of have this luxury of saying, hey, we got a whole bunch of projects. We've got 136 million, 140 million in capital improvement projects. We don't know when they're coming. We should just sit on this cash and have it available. We also have to understand that the city is our partner in this endeavor. And Mr. Ringet, if there is a need, and typically we don't see that pop up, is that we got 90 days to come up with match cash. If we're seeing down the road in our capital improvement projects, then part of this annual request of the city would be that we see this anticipated need. We need to have money in the future and would like to do that over time. But again, the game changer here is we're required to go in on an annual basis and ask, if we're going to ask for money, say how it's gonna be used and what it's gonna be used for. We can have a memorandum of understanding with the city about how we see future needs and everything else. But the commission is new and unique each year when they vote. And if we get a 3-2 vote to approve a certain mill levy this year, it's no guarantee that mill levy will be continued next year. And even if we have an agreement that says going forward, the current commission can't bind the future commission. So the reality we now live in is, I don't think we're a lot different than we are. I think we need to be a lot more purposeful and transparent in what we're asking for. But in these models that we're running, we're still building cash. We've got 47 million in investment in cash on hand. And through the terminal expansion, we're still gonna build cash. We need to present how we're gonna use that, what it's gonna be for. And that's gonna be part of what's considered by the commission. If I were sitting on the commission and said, you've got 47 million in cash, you're asking for a 1-year commitment on the mill levy, I would say no. you don't need any cash this year.
Mr. Chair,
Come back next year.
you're not sitting on the city commission, you're the board chair of the Municipal Airport Authority. Your job is the operation and or support of operation of the authority. We have 5 commissioners that do that job as a commission. And I think removing ourselves from the city and partnering with them is important, but removing ourselves from the city and operating the entity as an entity, knowing that there are strings attached to everything. The mill levies, the amount of tax dollars our tenants pay attributable to the city's budget, the county's budget, the park, that is all intertwined. All of it's intertwined. And so I think when we have a request, subject to the MOU, how we present that, how the city demands of us we do things, which is right now kind of not the problem, but maybe the opportunity. The city and the mayor has demanded they want a parking facility. We all want a parking facility. But how it's afforded, supported, and when it's done becomes a question. And I think we have a duty to ask for the city's support, as we have discussed prior, for that mill, additional mill for 5 years. That was the discussion.
Well, and I think that discussion took place, and what I took away from the discussion is we certainly can make a formal request for 3 mills. I don't believe it'll be approved.
That may be, but it's our obligation to do that.
Well,
And including the sunsetting of the 3rd mill in 5 years based on the rationale of the
We
pro
would
forma.
need to take formal action to do that. If
Yes.
that's a motion to like forward consider. But what we have to agree to is we can no longer make these blanket statements that we need 800 days cash. And we've got a study from 2017 that tells us we need 800 days of cash. If that's a target, then let's be very clear about it. Here's 800 days of cash, which, typically is for operating. You don't hold cash for capital, you hold cash for operating emergencies. That's what, $20+ million. But if you look at the projections that we've done with the terminal and the projects that we're doing now, and when we go out 10 years, we have 1,100 days of cash on hand. We hit a low point of 600 days cash on hand. But we need to understand that, and Rick, I will always look from both sides of the table, and I think it's foolish not to do this. I'm saying that as a commissioner, I would look at that and say, you guys don't need a mill levy this year. You have plenty of available cash for all the projects that you're contemplating. You're in good shape financially. You've got very, very comfortable and sufficient cash flow to service any debt, and that, yes, the city's expressed an interest in parking garages. Just about everybody I've met has expressed an interest in the parking garage. So I don't think that it's dead in the water. I think we need to continue to look at it. I did run the model. I had the model run at 0 mills, and that's the next big spreadsheet that everybody is learning to love and hate. But if you look, a mill is $800,000. We're talking about 2 mills being $1.6 million. That doesn't make or break the project in the cash flow analysis. If we look at 2 mills, requests from the airport supporting in our sources and uses, the airport expansion, which is an infrastructure project, so I think we're just parsing hairs there. And we look at the parking ramp as a standalone entity and the marginal revenue we expect. We again see a system that can generate cash flows to pay its cost of construction and operation. So, this is kind of for your consideration as we continue to ponder what to do with our request for the mills and dealing with the city. But again, as this runs out 15 years, when you start seeing the cash balance, and this is not how we account for that. We don't take one entity within the system and operate it as an individual. But if we look at this as an enterprise fund, beyond debt service, these projections are telling us we're going to build additional cash.
Going back to the mill levies, yesterday when we had the financial analysis presented from the city, we've got the tax mill levy of 2 mills already built into this financial analysis for just the term.
Yeah.
In that assumption.
And that's, that's 1 year's taxes collected for 1 year dedicated to infrastructure. And that's part of the cash drawdown in the sources there, about 18.5 million, $1.5 million of new mill levy money, so 20 plus million of drawdown of airport resources going into fund the terminal expansion project. And so that's what we're supposed to do. That's showing where we're going down, and that brings our cash down. But going forward, then we actually hit a low point in our days of cash on hand of the second or third year, where it drops to about 600 days. But at no point do we get severely deficient. Now, that has the terminal as a standalone. We have other projects alongside that.
Mr. Chairman, some of us, not all of you, were at the table when we hit our wall. And we were trying to discern our future, which included a separation of the two entities. And in fact, we were probably closer to that than people know. But we didn't get there, and we didn't land there. And we instead embarked on a new modified relationship going forward. I was at the table, Rick was at the table, Stacy was at the table. But I remember personally being surprised after we were deciding the airport would be on its own 2 feet, that the mill levy request was continuing. I didn't see that coming. So that led to a major discussion. In my head, what I recall being maybe the most compelling information for the partnership with the city was that you had this expansion coming right around the corner, and you had letters from Wannerman, I forget the name of the people at the state level, the airport folks, but the message to us was you really needed to have a city partner to qualify for these grants and for these other funding sources, and that it would put you at risk if you didn't have the city as a partner. That to me was compelling. I don't know the 2 mills would have passed then without this modification and without these discussions, but I don't know that it would have prevailed then, except that we all agree that it's a partnership for the greater good of the broader community. So that being said, if we in our partnership create a cash flow entity that relieves the taxpayer in the future, I would hope we'd all embrace that, realistically. Now, if it doesn't work, and you're already talking about a 5-year 1 mill request on top of the 2 mills, and so that suggests that 1 mill disappearing will have a positive benefit. Let's go a little further and see how far it improves, and leave the room for thanking the public and saying, we're not gonna always ask for this 2 mills necessarily, unless it's really essential. So there's this balcony view of we need to try get there, and we need to try partner to get there. But we also need to be realistic that taxpayers is what we're accountable to, and you're indirectly using taxpayer money, and yet we want to invest this taxpayer money to give the benefit to the people. I'm talking in circles here, but
Well, when you look at the parking structure as an enterprise, and that it will generate dollars, that the thing that we have to kind of get beyond is that mill levies the airports. And we've said that, and we've all been guilty of saying, that's our mill levy, or we can have up to 4 mills. These are taxpayer dollars. The taxpayers are allowing us to use those dollars. When we look at the projections of this parking structure as an enterprise, it will start to generate surplus revenues that could be used to reduce or replace the mills. And so as we start to look at cash building from this enterprise, why would we continue to go back to the taxpayers and ask them for their money when we're able to generate it through operations? Now, if we have needs that when we're looking at our capital improvement plan that says, here's where we may have shortages or holes in the plan, that's when we should go and ask the city commission to grant taxpayer dollars for us to meet those needs. If you look at that statement in the MOU, we are to ask for taxpayer dollars to garner additional federal, state, local dollars for the airport. And so this isn't any different than what we've been doing. It becomes formalized in that we have to be more intentional. We have to provide more information going forward. And the reason that we're locked up in these discussions is we're all still talking in somewhat generalities. We can't do this, we can do that. This money can't be here or there. Instead of saying, what happens here? Can we live without a mill levy? Absolutely, we can live without a mill levy. We generate enough revenue from operating as an airport. We can live without a mill levy. Do we want to? Probably not. It's easy money. No entity that lives off tax dollars ever wants to give that up because they feel they'll never get it back. From a commission standpoint, they never want to approve a mill levy to grant tax dollars because they can never stop it. And so I don't know where we get from here, but when I look at what our financial forecasts are telling us, we're undertaking a big project in the expansion. If we do not do a parking structure, then we should immediately dive into what it's gonna cost to expand surface parking and what type of transportation system from the distance these lots likely will be have to put into place. This isn't we add 4 gates, we double the size of the airport and leave the parking stationary, static. We still have to do something here. To me, when I look at these models, that we can build the parking ramp as part of this project and do it through operating revenues. We'll have some short-term cash flow problems that we have to deal with. We may have to have some interim construction financing, but this model all works. And I think the goal of this authority should become independent of taxpayer supported dollars. And as that type of entity, I think the taxpayers would thank us if we approach it from that standpoint. And I think we have the financial wherewithal to do that and still provide a top quality airport to the residents.
An exclamation point for me with this parking garage was when an outside company came to us wanting to build it on our property
Can't do that.
and take, it, you know, or partner with us to finance it, and then they would generate revenue, so there are entities.
That's what we do too quickly, is they can't do that. We lease land to private operators.
Can't do that legally.
Pardon me?
So we have been approached by at least one group.
We can't lease land.
We can't, it's legally, it can't be done. Can't have another outfit come and build a garage, take the revenue from airport land. Can't do that.
What's an FBO do?
It's illegal.
But Jim, what's the FBO do? The FBO leases land from the airport authority, builds buildings, runs a for-profit enterprise.
But then they also pay the airport.
Right, they lease land. It's a land. lease.
Yeah, and a part of their overall income too comes to the airport. At least it used to. I don't know if it does anymore, but.
Yeah, but, I mean, that's what we do. We certainly have the right to sell, lease property.
If you sell land that was purchased with federal dollars, then you gotta pay the federal government back.
You know, we don't need to get into this, but this is what we've done too often, can't be done. I think we could find a way.
Mr. Chair,
That would be an option.
not to go back to the special meeting, but because it was a consensus, I think we should make it formal that we ask for the continuation of the 2 mills and a 3rd mill with a sunset of no more than 5 years or less if financially available for the facility, that parking facility.
Is that a motion you would like to make?
Yes, it is a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Actually have to certify a dollar amount not to exceed then the 3.0 mils. So if we take, Mike Montplaisir always did this well for us.
Well, I think at this point, Sean, this is just, we're informing the city, the formal request.
Of the request.
The formal request will come later in the summer, which would have a dollar and mills amount through that.
And Mr. Chair, it's understood that the city has budget constraints, substantial budget constraints. But we have to operate a facility as well. And if there are those demands for parking and the city wants to partner, this is a way to show that partnership exists. And the sunset shows that we're willing to give back dollars to the taxpayers or not ask for additional dollars, maybe is a better way to put it.
Well, I'll speak against the motion, just from the reason that we had that meeting was to have this discussion. I heard very clearly that there's no support for the request from 3rd mill. And quite frankly, running this model and looking at the fact that it'll cash flow, there will be some times that we have tight operations, but this is not putting a dime of reserve money into the parking garage, 0, 100% finance, very conservative assumptions throughout the whole thing. So I quite frankly, at this point, after the discussions with the city, I will not support a request for 3 mills at this point. I'm open to discussion on the 2 mills, but I would strongly say asking for what we don't need leads to future problems.
I have a question. Your motion is where we're at already. What isn't clarified and would need to be clarified is you say asking for a mill for up to 5 years to sunset within 5 years or earlier. Now that or earlier aspect to me is where the rubber hits the road. At what point is it not needed? If it's at year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, and then what happens after we've succeeded and there's a cash flow? Do we have a other end of it where we diminish potentially with the profits, if there are any, But, so this is where I think we need a group of people with their pencils and their paper and whittle this down to an actual proposal. So what does that mean 5 years or earlier? At what point is the threshold of us deciding that's achievable? I don't disagree. I don't know that but I'd like to see specifically what that would look like if we find out that it can happen at year 2 or year 3 or year 1. I just don't know, but it's still gray.
Mr. Chair, I think we could, Commissioner Stan, I think we could accommodate that with the use of a coverage ratio. Once we get to a specific coverage ratio for a period of a year or a year and a half, or whatever that term is, but not to exceed 5 years. I think that to me would be comfortable, and the coverage ratio would be important, because as the chair said, we're gonna finance this. Well, the little dirty secret of financing is, if we've got debt finance, we can come back to the city and ask for mills to make sure we have coverage, correct?
There's, depending on the type of finance.
Yeah, subject to the type.
Subject to the type of finance. But again, I just, we've made a lot of progress here, but I believe going back to this point and saying, our formal request is 3 mills, I don't think we've gotten anywhere.
Well, we did have a consensus, I apologize. Chair.
But going to the commission, that may just say, no.
It may, Chair, but at the same time, we have an obligation to ask. If they come back and say no, then we work that
I believe
problem.
we did ask, and like I said,
No.
given the information and running this model, and after consideration of the whole, I think parking garage is a viable alternative without the mill levy, and I won't support the motion to request a mill levy. I don't believe we need at this point.
Mr. Chair, what happened to the consensus of the special meeting?
The consensus of the special meeting last week.
Yeah.
I've changed my mind.
Okay, understood. My motion stands. With a sunset of 5 years, with a coverage ratio that we work out with the city, if it can be less.
Who would work that out?
That would be our board and the city of Fargo.
Okay, I think that needs to be breathed life into, to know exactly what that could look like. It's in theory, and again, I don't think anybody's much disagreeing here. The contention is that those numbers might look better than we anticipate.
I would hope they
Cash
would.
flow. And if that's the case, then that'll be compelling information. If it doesn't look as good as we hope, then we have that reality to face. And then what type of timeline would it take to diminish that request for the initial mill? And is there an appetite or not? If, since I've become closer to the airport, there's one thing I've always heard. We're funded by parking. That's our revenue. It is your revenue. It's what you sustain yourselves with as an entity. If this model enhances that parking revenue picture nicely, in light of the growth that's absolutely coming and needed, that was a good path to go down. Then if we get to that point, at what point do we say, well, thank you? We don't need this anymore. And parking is still our revenue, and maybe more than ever before. With almost 1,000 cars in a ramp, plus I don't know, I think everybody is correct here. But I think that the detail will be what sways us, you and us, is, okay, what does that 5 years look like? What will it look like? How will it parse out? How will and what are the contingencies if it goes up or if it goes down? What are the options then? And I that's where my head's at right now. I don't have a good handle on that. to know this is what we're proposing for sure. And I think the city would, that would be, we all need to sit at the table and find some negotiators. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, any further discussion?
Got a related comment to this that I can make after the motion.
Okay. And so, John, I think, so we're clear here. Bending this a few different ways. If you want to read the motion is.
I will have Mr. Engen restate his motion, because we added the coverage ratio and I just want to use the.
So the motion is a continuation of current 2 mills, an additional request for 1 mill for not more than 5 years. And city and the authority work out a reasonable coverage ratio. And today, I can't say what that is because we've had so many pieces of paper and spreadsheets thrown in front of us that are different each time. And I'm not saying not accurate, but they're substantially different each time that we work out that ratio amongst us so that the city's comfortable with the sunset and the authority is comfortable with the sunset, if less than 5 years.
And again, I would just speak against the motion that at this point, that request will likely be answered in September, October with the vote on the budget. I think we need to continue to work on this, find a way forward. Both entities have confidence in. Again, from our meeting yesterday, the commissioners that spoke against an additional levy, and I think going with this formal request, and it negates what we did yesterday. We listened to you, and we're coming back anyway. So
Well, Mr. Chair, I think a formal request, then we'll get a formal response back prior to a September meeting. Because this also incorporates budget constraints that the mayor brought up and that we were so rushing to get all this put together. So I think the formality of it is important.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if we are asking the city for an additional mill to be directed towards or designated towards the parking garage
Infrastructure.
and they say no, then are we are we months and months behind then when it comes to finding an alternative way to finance the parking structure?
Well, I think conceptually, what the whole project would be contingent upon approval of the final budget. And so it can be part of the budget, but at any point, as Commissioner Shen can attest, when the 2 mills were comprised of the commission after the split of the entities, that was voted on as part of the final budget negotiations, and that's usually September, October. So if this is a formal request for budgetary action, they can, I suppose, deal with it by saying, no, we're not including it in our initial maximum bill levy to the certified county. But again, that's not specific, so it would probably delay us until whenever they want to take formal action.
I'm just thinking, like, what are the unintended consequences of asking for a mill that my feeling in the room yesterday was that 2 were not even guaranteed. So, what is the unintended consequences for our timeline regarding the construction of the terminal and potentially parking structure?
The terminal's been approved and can go ahead, but given the change, as we've talked about in the source and use statements with the terminal, if we have a change in the sources of the funds we've identified, yes, then we could go back and start looking at the terminal for additional funding sources or reduce scope of the project to save funds. This action is not trivial in the sense that we do have to deal with this. This motion, I believe, is delaying progress and working on this.
If I might, the timeline of why we accelerated a group joint meeting was, yes, the budget gets finalized and certified in October or late September or so, but the timeline is it's being shaped right now. And the budget presentation to the community and to the public is in, I believe, early July. And that's where we set the tone and set the general parameters. It's really close right now to being kind of the lanes we're going down. This wouldn't be the time to disrupt that discussion. You know, I'm afraid from our timing perspective, at a minimum, try to keep it open so we're not painting ourselves or anybody into a corner. I'd really like to see what this, what were the words you used?
Coverage ratio.
Yeah, I'd like to see this, what it would look like. You know, and I'd hate to misstep, and a minor doesn't matter, but I'm not sure you'll get a prevailing vote today or not. You might end up with a dead vote. You might end up 1 to 3, or 2 to 2, and you're missing one member. We don't have to decide this today. We can leave this open, but I still think we need to pencil it out. What's that 5 years look like? What happens after 5 years? What's the schedule to get there? I want to see that visually. That's just me. And I think that information will speak loudly, maybe.
We have a motion, is there, and a second?
I still feel that we have to make a formal request.
You do? I'm sorry.
Because no, you're right, you have to make a formal request. If they deny it, they deny it. But without making a request, you're not gonna get anything. You have to make the formal request, that has to go forward.
Let's
Because if you
finalize.
don't make the request, it's dead in the water then.
The lack of detail to that request right now, though, it presents a quandary. You know, I just like to see that 5 years. I'd like to see what it would look like. I'd like to see the
Well,
numbers.
Mr. Chair, I'll amend and remove the coverage ratio and just make it no more than 5 years.
Well,
That was the original motion
then,
anyway, right?
Yes.
You know, when if this motion prevails, then we've got our formal request and we wait for formal action from the city. I would suggest, and our attorney may advise us on this, but again, just like any entity, this board cannot bind future boards. And so what you're talking about in trying to accomplish is required, to be formally enacted, maybe a joint powers agreement, but most likely all that could be done is a memorandum of understanding that would set guidelines that future airport authority and city commission would consider in setting future mill levies. So some of what you're asking for cannot be set in stone, but this would be moving this to a formal request would, to my way of thinking, stop this. We would then wait to get the response from the city sometime this fall. And if we wanted to then, with that, there was either approval or it's not allowed, and we go forward. We have the ability right now to continue this study. You're complaining that there's a lot of spreadsheets, and I apologize, but.
Mr. Chair, I wasn't complaining, I was stating a fact. There are a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of revisions.
Yeah, and they've been revised based on discussion. We've kept a master so we know where they are. The assumption sheet is still intact. Everything comes through. The one that's in front of you, the change is going from 1 mil dedicated to the cash flow of the parking garage to 0 mils. That's the change. The other variables have stayed the same. Yes, they will continually change as we make changes to it. But if at this point this motion passes, this is our formal request to the city.
I understand that. And then we as,
And
Mr.
we
Chair,
will-
and we as a body then can act accordingly if they decline. And look to other ways to accomplish this process.
Mr. Strand, I thought that the meeting yesterday was, somewhat productive as far as just kind of laying our cards out on the table and seeing where we all are. If we do another debt ratio study and present it to the commissioners, do you think that we could get an answer before September, October?
I can't speak for anybody else. I just try and go down a path with as much flexibility and openness as possible right now. Let's not be etching anything in stone right now that pits us against each other, or pits even in our own little commission us against each other, and then all of a sudden we shoot ourselves in the foot. I just want to keep it open. I want to have an open-minded. I'd like to see if we can get everybody on board and what that takes, and not have 3-2, 2-2. You know what I mean? But I'm concerned that I understand. I'm just concerned that we're establishing some parameters which might have an impact on our discussions that might not leave them as open as I hope they are. I want a negotiation going forward and a mediation of what the terms and conditions are and the facts, and I'd like to see that spread out in front of us and all of us be available to that. If we preclude that and just, right now, I don't know.
Mr. Chair, in negotiation, Commissioner, in negotiation generally, there's two starting points between the two bodies.
That's what we.
I'm creating a starting point for this body, and it allows the city then to have a point and work to some common ground. But we have to have a starting point. Putting this off and just massaging spreadsheets till September puts us as a body in a bind too, I believe.
So yesterday, Commissioner Pepcorn had mentioned alternative the city is in favor of getting a parking garage, but how else can we fund it that's more palatable to the taxpayers and to the city's budget? And so to wait for an answer on a mill levy until September or October has us kicking the can down the road with all of our progress and our impending breaking ground on the terminal expansion and the whole thing. So maybe could we look at alternative sources in which the city could partner with us?
Well, if this motion is defeated, then the topic is open for continued discussion and analysis. If this motion passes, this takes the action and says, here's what we've got, city, here's our request. That's not a negotiating point.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, it is.
in view of the fact that we don't have a full board, I'll withdraw my second if Mr. Engen will withdraw his motion until we have a full board, because I got a feeling it's gonna be 2-2 and it's gonna die anyway.
Can I comment?
Yes.
Generally speaking, the amended MOU that was signed in January of 2022 does very specifically talk about this board going to the city commission and presenting the certification of the mill levy. And so that is very much laid out. The requirement is on or before July each year with no specific date designated. So I'm not sure where the parties, and Eric and I didn't specifically designate a date, but we're screaming up on July of 2023 right now.
Exactly.
The other thing is the changes in 2015 to 2-10-14, I believe, where it went from the city may to shall provide those mill levies. And then there's an interrelationship to the changes in the bonding. Before, an airport authority could go out on its own without the blessing of a city commission and issue those bonds. There were some changes in 2015 and 17 where it looks like there might need to be a vote by the city or a vote by the public. for me, I'll be honest, I need to get my hands around the interrelationship between the two. But it is very much the case that in 2015, that may for a city went to a shall in terms of
Yeah.
certification of the
And
mill.
that's something I don't think the whole city board understands or realizes either. That went from may to shall.
We've traditionally certified our mill levy at the first meeting in July, once in a while the second meeting in July.
And perhaps that's why Eric and I left that open, just because it hasn't been date
We
specific.
have another meeting
Yours
before
is
that,
on
right?
before July,
July.
which is not, it's not feasible.
Yes.
It's not feasible to do it before July.
And I do intend to talk with Nancy and or Eric or Ian or all three about perhaps modifying that date requirement just because because it's not feasible.
Well, down the road, financing options are going to be explored. And, I would suggest in partnership with the city that we would look for the financing option that provides the most advantageous financing for the airport's projects. And so that may look different depending on what that is.
The other thing that's in play here, and this started early this morning with Kylie from the Bank of North Dakota. So they've completed the underwriting for our loan and it's set for approval tomorrow. However, Steve Horton and I put it on pause because the language in the repayment, the sources, the net revenues of the airport, knowing we're having a discussion about a parking structure, if there's debt financing, what is pledged to that? We can't have a conflict between the two, so the bank has put it on hold until we figure out what the hell we're gonna do. It was set for approval tomorrow, so that language there could precipitate. What I would recommend is that in essence of time, that Stacy be allowed to engage John Shockley, who's a bond counsel. We were gonna use Jim Stewart. Jim Stewart has a conflict with Scott Wagner, who's with the Bank of North Dakota, just to work with Steve Horton and John Shockley to come up with language that doesn't prevent us, if we decide to do debt financing for a garage, that this language here doesn't prevent that.
I think we're getting a little far afield with the motion. This motion's very.
This isn't anything to do with the
No,
motion. This is,
No,
this is,
but we're having a discussion about
Right.
a motion, we need to keep the discussion germane to the motion. And so the motion is very specific in what Mr. Newman's laid out. And so, what we have here, who's the parliamentarian, is Mr. Capitan is now saying he would withdraw the second, which would kill the motion, if there's no other second at this point. And that's to do this friendly withdrawal that Mr. Ingram would also withdraw his. I think it's kind of a moot point, that if the second is withdrawn, then the motion dies for lack of a second, and we continue on.
No, if he withdraws his motion, fine. If he doesn't, my second stands.
I will withdraw my motion for the continuation of the 2 mills, the extension of the 3 mills for 5 years, till the next meeting, when a full board is present.
You would like this, we don't put a motion on the agenda.
Yeah.
Back.
No, I understand, but
This will be on the.
And I withdraw my second.
That didn't take long.
I have one quick question for Sean. Regarding what you said about the parking garage and a private company, how does it work when like a Minneapolis or a LA or a Dallas has a hotel on the airport grounds?
yeah, they do revenue share.
Okay,
They lease or the airport may own the hotel. There's variable scenarios out there. Sioux Falls has a hotel, real estate. They manage and share the revenues.
Okay.
We've had people that have looked at hotels and parking garages here in the past. So
Well, there's actually commercial real estate possibilities.
so it
in the
is,
south.
so it is a possibility that,
In
that a
in a
different,
case like that, yeah.
that a different
I
company
think what
could
you were
come.
talking about is somebody coming in, okay, we'll build the parking ramp, but we want all the proceeds. That cannot happen.
That is never what I said.
I
said
know,
that
but I
there's a
know
company
that.
that's interested in partnering with the airport to provide a parking
I
facility on
I think
their
I heard the
ground.
same thing, but then they wanted all the proceeds too.
I'm just saying it's not
Well,
black and white.
Again, the vehicle exists, Mr. Captain. And I just would encourage all of us to stop the blanket statements. Can't be done, can't do this, we got this, and all this. Let's look for solutions, let's look for ways to go forward. If we truly, as an entity, want to look at a parking garage and say that's not obtainable, then how do we solve the future parking issue? And that may be as simple as leasing land to someone, and let them operate parking.
I hate to see that happen, but it is one of the potential solutions.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest maybe now that where we're at and knowing the clock is running, let's convene our internal group again, but make sure Mr. Engen is there, your former chair, you're also reflective of this mindset of where we're wanting to have 3-in-1. That's very important to be at the table. Your chair currently now, let's bring Stacy and Eric in and let's pull out our notepad and see what this 5 years could look like and really look at numbers and then report back to your authority when your next meeting is. But let's see if we can get something going at tractionable in the meantime between now and then, which will, I'm guessing, potentially color all of our understandings of what we're looking at. Because I still see gray, and I want to see black and white with those terms. But your messaging is very, very important, and they know that messaging is coming. Let's see where we can find common ground. If that's a suggestion that's palatable to your board.
Council at this point, we will certainly reconvene our ad hoc committees that and see where that goes. Where we are right now, it's not good.
Oh, you know, if there's a consensus made, then you'd also call another special meeting, so we're not getting up a cement wall before it has to be done.
All right. Quick discussion there. So, item number 11, proposal highlight runway marking, $184,000.
So is there, ask Drew another inch, Andrew, what are you gonna say? So Andrew, our your side house supervisor went out and solicited informal quotations. This is a normal maintenance item for us every couple of years. And I recommend you award the proposal to highlight the Watertown Development to kind of take care of airfield markings on runway 927 and 1836.
Motion.
Have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Are there any other bids?
Flip the page, yeah,
Highlight and NPM, which is Lucia.
on the backside.
Bennett, it was really only a couple of years, the company comes out of New York, they were here a few years ago, and they're doing amazing job.
Okay.
Let's
Thanks.
call the roll.
Engen.
Aye.
Captain.
Aye.
Ekman.
Aye.
Osborne.
Aye. Item number 12, purchase of a vacuum excavator.
So we received 2 quotes for this year, we use that to clean out edge drains around on the cargo apron in our shop, other locations. The quote from RDO through a Sourcewell price was $32,469.66. That's not available until sometime next year. Ditch Witch has one available for just slightly more, $34,500. They can deliver that probably yet this week. Recommend that you go with the Ditch Witch.
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second to approve the purchase based on 2 quotes and availability.
Engen.
Aye.
Captain.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, proposal strip and seal coating, the parking lot repairs, South General Aviation.
You requested 3 informal quotes, advanced striping and seal coating. The other one's from Border Streets Paving, and the third one was declined was Hubert Oy. And this is for pavement of the asphalt surface in and around the east terminal, around Hangar 19, the Air Museum. Not in the Air Museum parking lot, but the parking area between the Air Museum and Hangar 19. I recommend you award that to advanced striping and seal coating.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Call the roll.
Hingham.
Aye.
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 Alright. Item 14, we have some training, looking for a motion to approve attendance at the training.
14 and 15 are as well, Sean, or? Motion for both,
Want to do both?
Yeah.
14 and 15.
motion 14 and 15.
Personnel.
Second on both of them.
Motion second, any discussion? Call the roll.
Hingham.
Aye.
Captain.
Aye.
Beckman.
Aye.
Osgood.
Aye. All right, item 16 is a marketing consultant proposal from Norm Robinson. This is a proposal that's actually, as we look at potentially RFPs for marketing services, and this would help us identify what we should be looking for, what we should be asking for in that proposal. All of that. Right?
We did solicit from Advanced Aviation. Christina Cole, had conversations with her. They are just an airport marketing firm. After discussions with their staff, they declined to go into the consulting role. Member Hingham had me contact Steve Dye off the wall. Marketing had a conversation with him May 31st. Have not heard anything back from him. Approached him to see interest if it was in the consulting area. Norm Robinson came to us through a communication that Rick Engen had with Pat Finken at Odney, and Norm was one of the two that was recommended there. And Norm came out, met with me, and provided this proposal, and hopefully we'll accept this and have Norm proceed.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion been second, any discussion?
One, Paula, for the purpose of this, will she be able to visit with Norm about the concerns you had in the marketing process?
Or could Norm just come and give a
Norm
presentation?
will be at our next meeting.
Or if you had any additional, I think it's okay
If
to
that's
reach
okay.
out.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
call the roll.
Hingham.
Aye.
Captain.
Aye.
Aye.
Osgood.
Aye. I hope item 17 kept you all awake last night. Reading the Code of Federal Regulations. Those, I think it's good to read those, skim them, whatever your tolerance is for them. My whole question is, and again, when you see this type of detail and regulation, is that we recognize we do need subject matter experts on things like this. And the way the Code of Federal Regulations is written is when they propose rules and then they write everybody's protest or support of the rules, and then by the time you get done, it's hard to really determine. So, have we ever been, from our auditor standpoint, as recipients of FAA dollars, had an audit of any of this, revenue uses?
Every year.
Yeah, but we've never had findings from that at this point. And so, it's frightening from the standpoint when you look at the requirements. But that's why we have the subject matter experts, and that's why we did the audits.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the only thing I took from this, other than that, it seems the FAA allows facilities and management to be charitable in what they do, is that I recall our prior year audit, we were deemed at risk. Sean, is that correct? By nothing we had done, no effect from or cause from this, but we were deemed at risk, so there are outside forces pushing on us and pulling as well that are out of our control. And I think we're at risk for one more year. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that just was something that, and I don't think it was out of the
Well, it
control of the
increases
city.
the price of our audit.
Yeah.
It's just that the auditors are saying that that's concerns, and because of that, they're gonna do extra procedures going forward. And so, we live with that, that's just the nature of this beast.
Good for one more year, I think, though, and then next year we're off.
we, you know, we just, I think, from reading this, the overall takeaway is that, yeah, with federal dollars, with federal grants, there's strength to conditions, and we just have to be aware of those and stay within the guide rails and make sure that we're in compliance. I don't think it's a board that we're gonna develop the expertise in this, so we will rely on subject matter experts and audits to comply. Okay. Airport construction and security update. Everybody wore out. All right.
The exit plaza is essentially done. We have a temporary cap waiting for the new color cap, so it's sealed and basically the building's done, it's pushing out a cap that matches the panel. Right now, the only thing left to do is we're working on removing some electrical from the existing exit plaza, or the old exit plaza, I should say. And we have a little asbestos in it. What they plan on doing is picking them up, putting them on a trailer, and getting them out of there so we can get going and remove the asbestos in another location.
Great, thank you. Chief Bush and Assistant Chief Burge, this meeting was carefully crafted to make sure that you never wish you could attend another board meeting after your retirement. So this was all staged for your benefit. and we could continue, but we won't. So we would like to congratulate you on terms here, and would entertain a motion of appreciation to both Chief Bush and Assistant Chief Burge.
So moved.
So moved. And Sean, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, so Assistant Chief Birch wasn't able to attend today, but Chief Bush, thank you for your service all the years, not only with the Guard being associated with the airport, but since October 1st of 2014, when the Airport Authority assumed aircraft rescue and firefighting. We appreciate that. Everyone's invited to a celebration of their retirements Friday, this coming Friday, June 23rd, 3 p.m. It's at the fire station. If you are coming, please let Joan know so that we can let Guard Security know and coordinate that with them. Chad Noyes is our new fire chief, as coming this week. So we're looking forward to him taking over the leadership of our fighting, and good things will happen. So, but thanks for all your service, and we'll celebrate more on the 23rd. I just need to vote on the resolution.
Yes, call the roll, please.
Hang on.
Aye.
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 Not to belabor, so Steve Horton was on earlier, had to log off at 9, he's back on. Steve, do you want to just do a quick update on our Bank of North Dakota conversation that you wanted to give? Anything else? Steve?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We just had a conversation with Connie Burkle with the Bank of North Dakota. We actually made a call to her a couple of days ago. We thought she was still seeking some data from the airport in order to complete their approval. And actually, she had everything she needed, and they have drafted an approval to whatever board they get approvals from. And we have an opportunity to review some of what they said. This is not the debt resolution, that's the technical legal document that governs the rules related to this $40 million debt that's been requested as a very significant part of funding the terminal expansion. That's the only thing the debt relates to. And so we'll have another conversation with her later this afternoon. We did have some concerns about some of the
net revenues of the airport. The security that is included in this debt approval is total net revenues of the airport. And if in the future some of those net revenues would be used upon other debt, for example, the parking garage debt, we have no idea how that would be structured right now, then we need to let them know. But it is preliminary at this point. She did indicate some flexibility.
Steve, could I stop you there a second?
Sure.
Are they proposing a total prohibition of any debt in addition to the 40 million? Or are they proposing?
No, they're absolutely not. In fact, in an earlier discussion we had with them before they started drafting any documents was we needed to have the possibility of additional debt issued at parity. That means the same security, the same level of lien, and there will be an additional, it's called an additional bonds test. We have to demonstrate that with all revenues of the airport and this $40 million debt issue plus any additional debt issue must meet that debt service coverage requirement in order to
what is the debt service coverage?
So no, it is not a prohibition.
Okay, and what's the debt service coverage if they're triggering this on?
It's 110%, which frankly is quite a bit below the norm.
That's pretty minimal, so okay. Yeah, I think that's fine as we go forward, but so that would be typical of any lending agreement. This isn't unique to the Bank of North Dakota in this process. It's certainly not a prohibition against airport operations looking for additional funding. And as we've looked at debt service coverage ratios and the models we've been working with, we have the ability to exceed those. So this is not kind of this stop, we're done situation here. Thank you.
The only other two things is North Dakota Aeronautics Commission will meet on Thursday the 15th. I plan to run that virtually with Tom Schauer to give them an update on the terminal project. You've all received the grant award letter and they'll finalize that hopefully. We did meet the deadline that the FAA put on us prior to Memorial Day. Jeff worked on that, but our first carriage development addendum reimbursement was filed for a little over 10.5 million. And the projects that are included on there are the East Economy Lot, the security system upgrade. There's a whole host of different projects that we've put forth for reimbursement through CARES. So that will leave a balance of 3.5 million. In the CARES fund to draw down, we may do some repairs and operational expenses, or there are at least 3 projects that we've completed that the FAA will allow us to submit after October 1st, once a NEPA approval is done. They have to do an environmental thing on the security checkpoint and so forth. So East Economy Lot, Parking Lot, Exit Plaza, South GA pavement reconstruction, rehabilitation design, North GA apron expansion design, terminal apron expansion design, snow removal equipment building fueling system, and then the cargo apron expansion, the final amount was not funded by the state or the federal government, will get 100% of the final amount for the cargo apron.
And if we had not received the grant dollars, how would we have paid for this?
Through reserves.
So this again is that big pot of funds that we can't say are or are not. So again, just looking at those cash balances. So that's where we are. Yes. All right. Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. With Paula the only one.